And he said, yeah, like, how you doing? I said, yeah, I'm doing pretty well. Like, I make a living. And he said, yeah, me too. I'm doing about 50 million a year. And I was like, stop.
50
Sorry,
million.
what? 50 million a year. I was like, there are levels to this game, and you were on God level. You're on boss level.
You run a bunch of companies. What's your persona?
That's an excellent question. I never thought of myself as a brand. That was always something that I have fought against. I have used brand identity. I once ran a club in London, which I bought into and was part owner, the Penthouse, #1 Leicester Square. If anyone see me on a podcast, you will know that's kind of where a lot of my audience building came from. And that was only because the club itself, we couldn't afford to pay for media or advertising, and social media was coming up, and I realized the importance of brand building. That if I could build something called a personal brand, people would come to me, and I could divert that attention to a venue. But I mean, I'll tell you, I've had 2 or 3 calls in the last 2 years with some of the most incredible names that if I drop them, I'll just feel guilty, but also pretty excited, where they've said, why aren't you pushing personal brand? And I said, and I quote, I'd rather be known well than well known. And I've been laughed at about that, but I think it's true. I think it's very easy to get sucked into this idea that you have to have a personal brand to build a business that makes good money, that allows you to have a great lifestyle. And my answer to that is Ben Francis. Most people don't know who Ben Francis is, and he's a billionaire, and he invented Gymshark. But we all know Gymshark, but we don't know Ben Francis, right? We all know Zara, but we can't talk about the man behind Zara or Inditex. So it's not always a personal brand play. I think for me, it's not so much about building a brand as much as it is about building a framework. It's all really about something Naval Ravikant once said, which is find a way to productize yourself. That way you can stay focused on signal, not noise. And that has been my formula over and over and over and over again. When you start, you're so focused on getting a client, right? That's your world. The client brings the money brings the freedom to breathe, the freedom to make better choices, the freedom to work on your business, not in your business. But I think that's a mistake. And I think it's something you learn over time. What you want to do is not be getting clients, but creating salespeople. So every time you do a really good job of selling your product or service to someone, they should be so impressed they become your sales force. That's been like the lottery ticket for me, is realizing that instead of creating clients, I'm creating billboards. I think it's very easy for people nowadays to go, I raised $1 million, or I have this much money coming in revenue. And I'm like, that doesn't mean anything. How much do you keep? How much is in your pocket? How much goes to your lifestyle? Like that's what I care about. I had a client who wanted me to buy his business. I'm not mentioning him, so I'm just thinking
You can leave
about. Yeah, but he sort of said, he's doing a 1.6 million, and I went through it line by line, and he was doing 40K in his pocket, and I just thought that's not worth it. You've got 12 staff, you've got 2 overheads, you've got 3 cars, you've got just to tell people the story about how you have this over $1 million business. Like that's not rich to me. Right? Maybe it's wealthy, but it's not rich. A rich life, to me, is my ability to say, no, I'm going to do nothing today. I'm going to go see a movie. I'm going to go see Mission Impossible. And when I'm finished with that, I might do 2 hours of work. I might write something. I might respond to some emails. But that's it. Like Tuesdays are off day. Or I want to solve this somewhere else. I want to do something else. Or I want to hang out with someone else. There was an incredible woman called Amanda Holmes. She wrote this book, Ultimate Sales Machine. Incredible book. Found out she was going to be flying through Paris back to America. I said, how about I meet you in Paris and we go for a croissant on a Wednesday? Jumped on the Eurostar, went up to Paris, we met up, she was amazing, she was worth the hype. Gave me a little, thing written inside my book, a lovely little, and I was like, that's what never be a boss, never have a boss means to me.